Morning, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. So a little bit about Brent. So we're based in northwest London. Wembley is, and the stadium is the centre part of our borough, but we border Harrow and Barn in the north, and then sort of Westminster, Camden in the south. So we're a really sort of varied borough, very urban, sort of central London feel in the south, sort of suburbs in the north, and right through the middle cuts the North Circular. We also have Park Royal, which is one of our biggest industrial estates, I think, in the country, that we sort of share with Ealing. And we have, an amazing and diverse resident population. So over 149 languages spoken in Brent, which is phenomenal. And we've also been classed as a borough of culture for 2020, which obviously is very different in current context. So in terms of wish lists, the top three really focus around opportunity and lifestyle and outcomes for our residents. So firstly, and I won't be any surprise being a London borough, is housing. We have nearly 2,000 households in temporary accommodation, and that's separate to our council housing waiting list. That's a real issue for us in terms of the need of what we need to resolve, and affordability of housing is really important. And family size units, what our planning, Cllr and all the rest of it indicates that we have a real need for family housing, so that's really important. And job opportunities and employment is one of the other key things in wish list, I think, for Brent. Parts of the borough are very affluent, Queen's Park, Northwick Park, kind of Hampstead. It's this beautiful part of the borough, but we do also have areas of real deprivation where parts of our borough actually average wage is around £18,000 a year, which is pre-lockdown, which, as you can imagine, massively impacts the life chances of our residents. And in addition, COVID has brought some complexity and worrying statistics for Brent. Obviously, we've had issues around health and high numbers of COVID infections and deaths, but we have in Brent Central alone 42,000 residents who are on furlough. So when furlough ends, it's going to be it's a genuine concern about employment opportunity. So there's two things: wage and kind of the level of what people are bringing in and the level of money they're bringing in, but also jobs and upskilling them, because I think post-COVID we are going to see some sectors perhaps diminish or need to adapt. And it's whether our residents are able to upskill. So the whole adult education agenda and skills agenda is massively important for us. And finally, I think the third thing for me personally, and I'm working with colleagues on this, is addressing the climate emergency. So we declared a climate emergency last year at the council, and one of the key factors around that, and one of the key issues of that, is air quality. So Brent has 4 of the top 10 roads in London of the worst air quality. The A5, the North Circular, and one in Harlesden. And it's a real issue for us. We have 200 people a year die prematurely of conditions related to poor air quality. And that just cannot continue. We have schools in poor air quality zones, particularly in the south of the borough. So we're introducing a lot of things, or we're trying to introduce a lot of things that hopefully can address that. So a lot of developments that are car free, particularly in areas of high P-tile rating. We are introducing active travel measures across the borough. As you can imagine, across London, that's causing some angst at the moment, but we are looking to trial areas where we can create neighbourhoods, particularly in areas of worst air quality, to see whether we can actually improve that, and obviously going by some of the successful schemes in Waltham Forest, for example. So we're looking at trying to address those over the next year, and obviously a whole strategy around climate emergency generally, promoting walking and cycling, and industry and so on, to try and support going carbon free or carbon neutral, or addressing the carbon output as much as we can by 2030. It's incumbent upon us to try and do something. And I think that also links to the economy. We're linked quite closely to Heathrow by our proximity to where we are in West London. So the sector is obviously at the moment very much halted or kind of really limited. But actually we need to look at can green industries play a part in revitalising Brent's and West London's economy, really. So there's some things there that we can work on. So 3 things really: housing, employment, and climate emergency.
let's just open that up very slightly. What kind of tools have you got to work with? What's the scale of the housing opportunity in Brent? How many houses do you own? How many houses are being built? And what sort of targets do you have?
So yeah, so we our manifesto commitment was to directly build 1,000 council homes ourselves, and we're on track to exceed that actually by 22. So that's great. We've currently got over 700 in on site at the moment, and we're looking at another similar amount going through planning and the feasibility studies at the moment. So we're looking to exceed that. Plus, with our housing association partners, we're looking to another 4,000 or so across the borough. Our London plan and sort of housing targets are around 2,000 homes, or just over 2,000 homes a year, which is quite considerable considering how packed Brent is. Where we're a landlocked, if you will, a London borough. So we don't have much in terms of space. We're also very keen to protect our green and open spaces. So it's about how we are innovative and creative in planning and working with developers or us, or even on our own sites, to look at how we can maximize potential to achieve housing that we need. So we're quite keen to look at things like co-location. We're also a borough that's under the draft London plan, expected to deliver or enhance our capacity for industrial sites. So we're looking at some of our strategic industrial land to see whether there's scope for co-location, mixed developments, and so on. So we're trying to be very creative in that approach as well. And we're very keen in terms of our planning to look at master plans or area action plans where we can actually give some certainty to the market, to other developers, to housing associations of what we expect, but also to give residents that reassurance of what is protected and what's coming. So they have an idea that we're planning for the infrastructure. Because obviously a lot of times, quite often I hear, all this is happening in Wembley, for example, all these tower blocks are coming, but what's there in terms of schools and medical centres and so on. So we're very, very aware that we need to kind of make sure that that's secured through planning. Obviously, we have partners that we need to make sure are able to deliver. But the other thing is that we want to make sure as we work with TfL to deliver the transport infrastructure. It's really, really important. We're a very well connected borough in the sense that we've got over 20 underground stations, tube stations in borough. I think we're highest in London after City or Westminster. We're in terms of connection for public transport, we're we're excellent links. It's about maximising what we can with public transport, and we need to make sure our stations are all step-free access. Some stations are more complicated than others, but using strategic Cllr, for example, to enable that to happen, and working with TfL to ensure that happens, and making sure that our roads and networks are suitable. But it's no mean feat, but it's a lot of strategic planning, really.
Those 700 homes that you were talking about on site, are they under your own development company?
Yeah, no direct built, not even it's directly built through us. So my colleague Ellie, who's the housing lead, and myself, I'm the regen property lead, we work together in terms of housing. Also, we need this infill site on our own housing estate, because last year we bought back in house, probably last year, 18 months ago, one of our biggest housing associations, Brent Housing Management, came back into the council's remit. So on all those sites, we're looking at maximising infill opportunities where it's possible, improving the landscaping of those areas, plus our own housing estates, where we've got a big one in South Kilburn. We're looking at what's possible on St Raphael's estate in Stonebridge, and looking at what we can do. So it is direct delivery, but we also have our own investment company, Invest for Brent, which is a housing company that we as the council are its primary or the only shareholder, and we've loaned them monies to buy property that can help us address our housing need as well. So and our own housing association. So it's a combination of factors with that, and we're open to looking at other ways of addressing that need as well, whether it's working in partnership with other public sector organisations as well. So I should also say that we have in Northwick Park a one public estate site at Northwick Park Hospital that we are currently going through the planning stages with the hospital and the University of Westminster and Network Homes as well. It's a four-way partnership really there to try and really bring a really fantastic scheme, but also improve some of the transport infrastructure around there as well.
What sort of ambitions do you have for that scheme?
Well, it's a combination, really. It's to improve the hospital site, really, to improve mainly to give community facilities, to improve the Northwick Park tube station, because we're hoping to get step-free access, and housing, really. We're working with Network Homes, is our partner there, to provide good quality homes in an area that actually can take some density, I think, a little bit, and key worker housing as well. So part of the ask will be to support key worker housing for the hospital. So it will be, I think, we're looking at upwards of 1,000 homes on that site. And it allows us to also protect the park. So I think we've got a park that sits right by. So it will be actually a really, really fantastic development on the edge of the borough that will serve a hospital. And I think the only next step I could see is whether the hospital can modernise a little bit and refurb, but that's beyond our control. But it's about looking at what else we can do to improve that whole junction as well.
How do you define key worker housing?
So we recently bought a block in Wembley from the developer there, which is we're primarily looking at as what we call key worker. So I think and that will be in sort of within the council remit, any public sector service that is in shortage, really, and obviously there's certain hierarchy, certain criteria and so on. So teachers, nurses, I think they're the most obvious ones, but obviously social workers, we are in desperate need of social workers. We don't want to keep relying on agency staff. As great as they are, it does cost us money, but if we can offer accommodation and good quality homes as part of the package, then that's really important. It's about looking at what's needed in the borough, really.
Are you defining that by rental levels, though, or by prioritizing particular people to be able to take up places?
A bit of both, really. I mean, the priority of what sectors we need to fill is the key one, really. But the rent levels will be affordable, so they won't be market rent or even 80% of market rent. They will be cheaper than that.